called technology, right?
Yes. Yeah, I lost my audio, so I had to basically
Reboot.
leave and
Yeah,
rejoin.
yeah. So we'll see how big this group gets. Brian, I take it you're a veteran?
I am. Yeah. Army veteran, knuckle dragging Army guy
Gotcha. Where are you out of?
out of Fort Campbell, retired out of Fort Campbell, live in Nashville, Tennessee.
Oh, okay.
Oh, cool. You're close to me.
Yeah.
I live in White House. I just
Yeah.
was out at Fort Campbell earlier this morning to pick up some prescriptions.
Oh, sure. Yeah. This is the place.
So why don't we, they're all veterans here. So that's a good thing. And my name's Bob Friedenthal. Years ago, I used to have got somebody else joining in. Hang on one sec. So I got out of the service in 1972. I was with NATO, and I was a very lucky guy because I was in the Navy. I did my basic in San Diego. Then I went up to Treasure Island in San Francisco. It's no longer a military base. And most people went through transit in like 2 to 3 weeks, and I'm there 90 days, not getting orders, not getting orders, not getting orders. I was a third class radioman, choice grade AB for River Patrol. And I get detached from the U.S. Navy and assigned to NATO in Norfolk, Virginia. So I spent another 3 years in Norfolk. I worked for Alexander Haig, if you remember him. He was the head of a base called SACLANT, Supreme Allied Commander of the Atlantic, and called up my dad, by the way, who was vacationing in Germany. Remember, this is like 1969, 68, 69 probably. And I said to my dad, who was vacationing in Germany, I said, Dad, did you bribe a congressman or something like that? He says, What are you talking about? I said, I'm not going to Vietnam. Out of 1,000 guys, 999 of them went to Vietnam. I was choice grade A B for River Patrol, and they put me in NATO. So I was a lucky guy, very, very lucky guy. So anyway, that's my story. Um, Dennis, you want to tell your
Sure,
story?
I'll be happy to. I was born into a Navy family and moved around a lot. Really wanted to go Blue Water Navy, but when I was applying for ROTC scholarships, the Navy said you can have a scholarship, but you got defective color vision, so you got to be a Marine. And though I have many Marine friends now, at that point in time in my life, that was not what I wanted to hear. So the Army came through with an ROTC scholarship for me, and that was the beginning of my Army career. I became a medical service corps officer, and I served from 1978 to 2000. Then was returned to active duty, recalled out of retirement in 2011, did a 2-year retiree recall up at Fort Knox, and wound up here in Middle Tennessee with a job after that. And then about 5 years ago, the that job went away, and I'd been thinking really hard about this issue that I saw, and that I've created my nonprofit for, basically to tell the as many of the stories that are not being told of the men and women who gave their all while serving. And so I started the Price of Freedom Foundation. April 2019 was when we formed the organization, and we are dedicated to telling the complete life stories of those who died in military service. We completed our first book which is out. We are working with 3 other families currently. We're definitely looking to add about 5 more as soon as we possibly can, because we want to produce these not just in book form, but in video, because there's 2 basic issues that I want to address. Number 1 is actually collecting, preserving, and then telling the life stories, and that's where the book comes in. Because let's face it, the books are going to be around for a lot longer than videos will, and so I want families to have a collection that brings it all together, not just the bits and scraps and pieces that we currently have. And so that's why our first focus is on getting that full biography completed and delivered to that family. Secondly, though, the biggest common issue that Gold Star families express is the sense that sometime, 6 months to 2 years after their loved one has died, they have the sense that their loved one's been forgotten, their sacrifice no longer being honored. And so being able to tell their story to as wide of an audience as possible will help to mitigate that issue. And so in order to do that, books are not going to be the answer. Video has to be, because we're in a video-centric world. And so everything that we do in researching our stories has that as a goal in mind. So we record every interview that we conduct. We ask for anything and everything from those families that will help tell those stories, whether that's whether that's pictures, videos, access to social media, whatever it may be. And we intend to put together documentary videos that tell this person's story. Funding is the biggest challenge with all of this, because none of this is cheap to do. Up to this point, I've had support from individuals, but it's not nearly enough to, at this point, to get us to where we need to be. It cost us about $12,000 per book to put together. And the low end quote that I've received from filmmakers has been $30,000 to produce a 1-hour documentary. And the majority of them have said that if you want to do a good job at it, we should be looking between 50 and 75 for each one. So the question then comes, well, where do you get that kind of capital? I do have 2 filmmakers here in the Nashville area that love what we're doing, want to help us, and what they want to do is to pitch this idea to studios and angel investors as a docuseries. And in order to do that, we need to at least have the ideas for each of the episodes. We need 8 to 10 episodes. The idea being each person gets 1 episode, and that's why I'm looking for 5 more families currently to serve, because we currently have 4. That's kind of where I'm at and what we're doing. I see that there's a benefit to veterans when as we're doing this, because every time that I have interviewed people who have been a part of research of the story, the veterans in particular, in telling the story of their fallen comrade, there has to date, of course, it's a small sample size, but every one of them has found a sense of cathartic healing, I guess is be the best word to describe it, knowing that not only are they just telling me the story of their fallen buddy, but that they know this is going to be part of something that's going to get told to a larger audience. and that has a positive impact on them. So one of the things that we are willing to do, if we don't have the contact with the family or them signing on with us, is to offer to veterans who have lost a comrade to do video tributes to their fallen buddies, and have those essentially as a standalone story that we can broadcast, with the hope that eventually we can get the family to say, hey, this is a good thing, and we're going to give permission to do the full story. But
Good
so we've seen this as having a positive effect for living veterans as well.
So why don't we do this? Brian, since you were the first one on the scene, why don't you tell us about yourself, what you're looking for?
Sure, I'll give you a quick and dirty, and thanks for reaching out. I think it was Dennis maybe that sent me a connection on LinkedIn. So I actually was born into a Marine family, and then grew up as a mostly West Coast Marine. My father was stationed at Camp Pendleton most of the time, then did some time in Korea and Okinawa. I grew up, decided I was going to go against my family's Marine and Navy lineage, and went to West Point, graduated, got into aviation, and then ended up in the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment, which brought me to Fort Campbell. And I stayed in Special Operations Aviation from 2004 until 2020 when I retired. So retired with 21 years, and then met my wife while she was going to school at Vanderbilt. So we sort of fell in love with the Nashville area and decided to settle here.
What are you doing now? What are you doing now? What are you doing now?
With Ingram Marine Group here in Nashville, private company of like family entrepreneurial type stuff. They have a publishing arm called Ingram Content. They have Ingram Barge Company, which is primarily their core business of moving commodities up and down the rivers, the inland rivers of the United States, primarily the Mississippi. And then they also own the Nashville Soccer Club. So kind of a pretty diverse setup, but and then still giving back to the Army or to the military. I'm the executive director for the Night Stalker Foundation. And so we're relatively new. Since 2019 is when we formalized the board. And and our purpose is to serve the families and the soldiers of that unit. And our 4 big gives are scholarships, family and soldier resiliency programs. We're starting to get into a little bit of the transition assistance for guys that are they're getting out of the unit, and then aside from emergency assistance, trying to just make sure that we preserve the lineage of the unit. They've been around for about 40 years. So that's our main thing, and that's what I'm doing here.
Very cool. Very cool.
As you're looking for families, unfortunately, we had a Black Hawk crash, right on Veterans Day. We lost 5 Night Stalkers. So as you're going through this and you're building out this series, if you don't have an aviator or an aviation person in that book, maybe we could look at trying to contact some of our families of the fallen. We have 104 that were killed either in action or training.
Well, I think I'd love to have a conversation with you about being able to reach out to those families. Absolutely. It would be very helpful.
All right. Lee, you want to tell us about yourself?
Sure. Funny enough, almost the exact same timeline as Brian as far as college, ROTC, going through flight school in the Army. Dad was a Green Beret, Vietnam, and grew up with that mentality of Army focus, I guess, as far as pertaining to just military life. And then my dad and I both started flying together for the first time in small aircraft when I was a teenager. But yeah, went in and arrived at Fort Rucker in 1999 and retired in April 2020 into the corporate world here in Atlanta. I also served at Fort Campbell in the 101st for the first year in Iraq, and then moved on to the 82nd, as well as some other places throughout. But Iraq, Afghanistan, all those fun times. And then I've been a thankful civilian here in Atlanta since summer of 2020 when COVID hit. And I've worked for 3 different CEOs since here in the local area. I'm currently the vice president of a corporate security company called Remote Security Solutions, and I'm leading their business development and marketing department now as we branch into everything from employee security to in-transit security and perimeter security as well. So it's been a lot of fun. But my passion has really been in the almost 4 years now since I've been out is volunteering with Hiring Heroes in different organizations, helping folks transition on one side, on corporate fellowship side, to senior leaders coming out and transitioning into leadership into corporate America has been a lot of fun. But that range of help goes from leadership into corporate boardrooms to folks struggling with alcohol and drug addiction and PTSD on the other side, because it's kind of all encompassing as you start civilian life, if you will, for the first time in your life for many of us as you come out. So that has been a passion of mine. And Dennis, thank you for reaching out. I don't often reply to the many requests I get on LinkedIn for different things. I do donate and volunteer with a lot of different organizations, but everyone seems to have their own charitable organization right now. And some seem really good, and I wish I could help, but don't have the time. And others seem a little sketchy, to be honest with you. And there's a lot of money. I was working with one organization that had just received a $6 million check from Jeff Bezos's ex-wife. So there's a lot of money coming out and a lot of people that don't know how to use it very well as well. But as soon as I saw your note, I was like, wow, that is a different, unique idea. That is an amazing idea to help families of the fallen. I already donate to an organization called Folded Flag that helps the families of the deceased fallen to get their kids good education and move on with their lives. So love the idea of helping those kind of families. I was fortunate enough, my dad and I both, to make it home from multiple combat tours. And I just love reaching out and helping those families that their family member did not make it back. So anything I can do to help, I'm here for you.
Love it.
I
So,
appreciate it.
do you know how many veterans there are in the United States?
I know that 22 commit suicide a day.
Right. That was the next statistic I was gonna give you. My daughter has a doctorate in psychology, and she worked for the VA here in California. And she used to tell me how difficult it was because of the amount of suicides that are committed, and the PTSD that they're experiencing. She couldn't take it that long. I mean, she worked there for over a year. It might have been 2 years that she worked for the VA, and that's why I started learning about how many vets a day commit suicide. It's sad. It's really sad, and it's our payback to other veterans of how we can help, and it goes beyond raising money. It goes to the soul of what it is that vets need. And you're not always going to get that by going to the VA. And this is one of the reasons that Dennis and I are very committed to growing this group, just to be able to talk about things. That's the hard part, is getting people to talk about it. My niece's husband was here a couple meetings ago, and he has tattoos all up and down his body of all the guys that he was in combat with that lost their lives. And he's got tats like you wouldn't believe. So, but what happens is, what we tend to do is we tend to bury it. This is what my daughter was talking about. We tend to bury our emotions. You're taught, especially as guys, to be you don't talk about emotional stuff. So we tend to circumvent that, but this is really the time to be talking about it because we've all gone through some kind of horrible experience in our lifetimes, and to be able to talk about it is just with other veterans is it's helpful. Wouldn't you guys say, or would you differ from me in saying that?
No, I agree. It's real hard to get folks like us to talk about it. I don't like to talk about it, and especially if I'm not in the company of other combat veterans. So it's definitely difficult, and it's important. I was doing it this morning. I was reaching out to a friend of mine in the local area. His brother has just recently retired or ETS, but he served over a decade, and just struggling with drugs and alcohol and suicidal ideation. So, and he can't reach his brother. So he's asked me to reach out to him. And, it's one of many cases. So if I can help one person through that kind of process, then all the hours I put in volunteer work are worth it. So,
and you know what? You're helping yourself by being able to talk about it here. Just to be able to talk about it is so important that you're getting your stress. I mean, PTSD amongst veterans has got to be absolutely through the roof. And interestingly enough, what my daughter was saying was that guys go into retirement from whatever job they had, and then all the scars of battle come back into the surface. And that's why there's so many, it's not just young people committing suicide, it's the older people committing suicide as well. So, the old expression, idle hands are the devil's workshop. Well, you know what? When your mind is freed up and you don't have any responsibility because you're tired, that's when you start stressing about it again and thinking about the horrors that you went through when you were in the military. So we all have these scars that are sitting there. But what we tend to do is, especially as men, is we tend to suppress them. It's the exact wrong thing to do. You should be able to talk about it just to relieve it. And I'm kind of curious with the other two gentlemen here today, how has this helped or rewarded you at all by just being here?
Yeah, I think it's as we're, and this is recent for us, but as we've come into Gold Star families and have these things come in, finding ways to tell their story, I think is a great way to proliferate, the memories and the sacrifice that they made. And while we try, and we're relatively small in the special operations community, but while we have a lot of outreach with the Gold Star families, there's so many, like out in the conventional Army and the other ones, the DoD just doesn't have the resources nor the time to hold on to those families for long periods of time. And that creates that feeling of loss of, they've just been forgotten for their sacrifice. And so that makes it hard. The other piece too is the rise of people that need to find, gatherings with like-minded folks to express, whatever it is they're going through. That's been a big focus and an ask to me, with our foundation, is to find ways to create these gatherings for people.
I love it. I really appreciate what you're trying to do, what you are doing. Like I was saying, my daughter used to comment, I mean, she couldn't take it that long. She stayed there a year or 2 years working for the Veterans Administration in Redlands, California. Just to be able to help other veterans just talk about it. And what do we do as guys? We suppress it. That's the exact wrong thing to be doing. If you can talk about it, then you kind of get some of that stress out of your system, don't you? Crazy stuff. My dad was World War II, and he was a major in the Army Air Corps. His troop, his troop trained guys for the Normandy invasion, in gliders. And so what they would do is they'd pull 3 gliders behind a DC-3 that crash landed behind enemy lines in Normandy. 80% of his troop was killed the first day, because when they got up to get out of the glider, the Germans would just pick them off. But they had to do it because they needed to move the enemy line forward and distract what was happening. So crazy lives that we live, right? I tell everybody I have PTSD as well, post-traumatic spousal disorder.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah,
And
look, I'm so thankful for the other gentleman that joined us today. And I think we have something that can be talked about. And getting it out of your system is so essential for you as well as other people. So let's see what we can do to grow this group. Would you guys come back? Be honest.
Yeah, I'll be back.
Great. Love to have you. So that was Lee that just said that?
That was Brian.
Oh, Brian said that. How about
And
you?
Lee.
Lee?
Same thing.
I love it. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
So appreciate it. You know, when I was in the Navy, I got out of the service in 1972, I think it was. And back in those days, it was dogs and sailors keep off the grass. We were hated because we were military. So such a change of times now. People appreciate veterans. So I thank you for serving. And anything else that needs to be brought up?
Just out of curiosity, how many folks have you connected with through this, through this
Through
initiative?
this, this program with Bob that I'm working here together with Bob on, we just recently got started. So it's been less than a month that we've been doing this. And then we had some technical issues last week. Last week was just Bob and me. I think there was a problem with, we had like 20 people that were signed up, but
It was a Zoom
only the
issue.
2 of us were, and I had problem getting connected myself. So
That was a Zoom issue last week.
Yeah, there's a Zoom technical problem, but I'd say there's maybe another 5 people that we've connected with that over the past few weeks.
Okay.
Right.
Bob, I mean, I think that's about the number right now.
Yeah, I just
and I appreciate your interest in what we're doing, and I certainly can use the help with this, but I also want this to be something that we can grow as a community that is supportive of you and the other participants as well. So we would love to be able to get feedback to say, okay, well, what would make this even better? Is it a specific topic that you'd like to see us discuss? Is there a specific speaker that you'd like us to try and invite and bring on board? How can we support you as well? So yes, I do appreciate the the messaging and the response to that. I'm thinking too, being able to tell your stories, and maybe we can set up a time where we record something specific for you to talk about what you feel is important about your service and what your service has meant to you, and what it's done for you in your life. I don't know. I'm open to ideas, and I'm pretty certain Bob is too.
very much. Yeah. Just being able to talk about things makes a difference. And then, like I said, we tend to suppress that, which is actually the wrong thing to do. It's the wrong
Right.
thing to do.
One of the things that I noted too is that, you know, we do have this tendency not to want to talk about ourselves. I think as veterans, we're a little bit more open to the idea of talking about our buddies, and especially those that that didn't make it. But when you do that, you can't help but talk a little bit, at least, about yourself. And when I've been doing my interviews, I always leave the door open to talk a little bit more. I had one Vietnam veteran that I interviewed initially to talk about the guys that he knew that didn't make it back from Vietnam. He had been in Vietnam for about 9 months total, had an old shoulder injury that basically cycled himself back to the States. He had been a Navy aviation mechanic, was assigned to Da Nang, and the base there was very, very safe during the months that he was there. About 3 months after he was sent back to the States for his shoulder surgery, Tet happened, and the base was overrun, and a third of the guys that he was with came home in body bags. He wound up, there were, I think he said there were 11 that were lost. He was basically asked to attend a bunch of funerals, and after the fourth one, he just couldn't do it anymore. Well, he started talking about how he was, how he had seen, he basically diminished his experience in Vietnam by saying he saw exactly 30 seconds of combat. And they had a mission where they would go out and pick up downed pilots within a certain radius of the base. And so he went on 3 of those missions. 2 of them were non-events, essentially, able to no enemy in the area, found the aircraft, found the pilots, landed, picked them up, went home, or went back to base. The third one was the exact opposite. There were hundreds of NVA and Cambodian troops, uniformed troops, in the area looking for the downed aircraft and pilots. And of course, when these helicopters showed up, they then had a better idea of where they were, started going to that area. He was on the ground, picked up the co-pilot, had him over his shoulders, returning to the aircraft, when 3 what he called kids in NVA uniforms with weapons that they were bringing to bear on him popped out of the elephant grass, and he shot and killed all 3 of them. And being able to talk about that was very cathartic for him, because he had had over 50 years of nightmares seeing those faces. And he told me a day or 2 after that interview that that night was the first time in that entire period of time that he didn't have a nightmare seeing those faces anymore. And I've talked with him since, and he said they've sometimes popped back, but it has diminished a lot. So I know that in that situation, we didn't go in asking him to talk about his specific painful memories, but I left the door open for him to do so. And in him doing that, it did provide a very definite relief. So that's my open invitation to yourselves and to anybody else to be able to come talk with us and tell the story of the fallen comrades, and maybe tell a little bit of your own. Who knows what it may do for you.
It's interesting stuff, because I could never, ever get my dad to talk about the war. It's just something he was not willing to talk about. So that's how he expressed his emotions, by burying it and not talking about it. Crazy stuff, huh, gang? So do us a big favor before we sign off. Can Brian and Lee, can you put your contact information in the chat room down at the bottom, and include a phone number, because most people don't include their phone number, but include your phone number so we can be in contact with you and making sure that we know how to be able to call you and talk to you. You know, look, we're in a texting world nowadays, but you know what? There's nothing better than actually talking to somebody, right?
You got it.
No
there.
problem. And I've connected with you all over, or at least sent you invitations over LinkedIn, so you'll have that. But I'll post my phone number here in the chat as well.
Fantastic.
Thanks, Lee. Appreciate it.
Last quick question from my side. How do you see it going forward? What a great idea, but how do you see it unfolding over the next several months? And what do you see us as volunteers assisting you doing to help?
You know, that's a good question. I'm not sure I know 100% how to answer that, but I've always been a guy that I listen and then ask questions and figure out the process. If you have any suggestions that you would like to make of the group, please put that in the chat room as well.
The only thing that came to mind as we were
Or
talking
email
today
us later.
was just that I would potentially start a LinkedIn page just for the organization, for the nonprofit, and with its mission statement and what we're trying to accomplish. I think you'll find it easy for folks when you invite them and they go to that LinkedIn landing page and they see what we're doing, what you guys have started.
I love it.
Okay. Yeah, I do have a LinkedIn page for the nonprofit, and I think Bobby and I can talk about how we can do that connection here. We've had that up for several years now, but yes, that's a great idea.
Yeah, I think we could collaborate with Marie. The picture of MyCity.com, that's Marie. She's the head of my social media. She attends these meetings. Say hi to Marie. But yeah, there's always another step along the way that we can take. And ironically, I'm out of LA, so I had an 8 a.m. Zoom meeting with this group's been around for going on 5 years now. There are about 20 people that routinely show up at the meeting, and we were asking the same questions. What is it that you need? How can we help you? And they're going to bring that into the meeting next week to make suggestions of how to change things. I own a website called MyCity.com. And I bought the company out of bankruptcy in 2001 or 2. And long story short is I gave 15% of my company and $175,000 to the company that I bought out. So they went from being venture capitalists to vulture capitalists. And I said, screw it. And I shut the site down. At one point, MyCity was one of the 400, not 4,000, not 400,000, 400 most trafficked sites in the entire internet. And I said, screw it. And I shut it down. Just shut it down. I fired the, they used to fly out to be in meetings in my office in LA. And I told the board members, you can't come back to these meetings here. You can only do it by call. And ultimately, they ended up owing the government a ton of money. They went out of business. I left the site shut down for a number of years, but I've made a full-on commitment to blowing up MyCity.com to be able to help and compete in a changing world. So that's one of the things. I don't know about you guys, but I can't turn my brain off. You guys just shut down. I can't shut down. So I figure I'm going to be working until I drop. And I always look at your mind as a muscle. And if you don't exercise it like the rest of your body, it'll atrophy like the rest of your body does. So keep yourself active, keep stimulating yourself, and challenge. Challenge is the one of the best tools for growing, right? For staying healthy.
All right.
Right? You guys look like you're in pretty good shape.
Absolutely.
I'm the old guy here.
I got young kids. They keep me young,
How old are they?
keep me moving. They're 10, 8, and 4. So I'm
Wait, 10?
10,
10?
8, and 4. Yeah.
Oh,
So,
okay.
Oh yes,
So
they'll
I'm in,
they'll keep you moving.
yeah, I'm in the thick of it.
yeah, I
So,
have a 32-year-old son and a 35-year-old daughter who's got a doctorate in psychology. So, you know, interesting world. And our son is a nurse at Mayo Clinic in Scottsdale, and he's got a 14-month-old daughter. So we're going between LA and Scottsdale all the time. My wife and I have been married 40 years. We call each other Mr. and Mrs. No Man. So again, if you don't have anything funny to say, you shouldn't be speaking. And we're having fun. That's the one thing my wife and I do is we have fun. That's the gospel. All right, guys. We still got about 20 minutes left, but I think we've do you have any questions? Do you have any suggestions that you'd like to throw at us?
no, I mean, I think as the group grows, I think some of the subjects to sort of talk about will kind of self-illuminate, just depending on the personalities that, that join the group and start
Yeah.
talking through stuff. And then, one of the weird things on the aviation side is that, um, for the fear of losing our license to fly, called an upslip, like most pilots or most aviators never spoke about anything that they had problems with health wise, through their whole career, because your eyes and your ears were the ways that you could maintain your livelihood. So I'm sure that'll come up at some point in discussion. But the inability to and then that bleeds into the behavioral health side as well, and the mental piece. The inability to voice any of that while you're active duty shows that that's part of the reason why there's so much of that after the fact, for specifically on the aviation side. And I'm sure it's probably true in every other branch as well. Nobody went to sick call when they were they didn't want to go there because they looked like they were a sissy or something. And then
So true.
and
So
it all
true.
manifests afterwards.
Such a true statement.
Right.
And talking about it is essential.
Yeah, and I think too that reflecting on what you said there, Brian, I think that also shows up later on when you try and go to the VA and they say, well, there's no service connection for this because there's no medical history of it, and it's like,
Right.
yeah, you're right. I mean, I never went to any, I mean, I wrestled with depression and suicidal thinking throughout my entire Army career, usually in times of marital stress. And so, should I have gone to mental health counseling? I probably should have, but I also knew that I'd probably have my security clearance suspended, and that would not be a good thing for my career. So it's like, yeah, it's not a huge thing for me because I somehow have conquered that demon, and I don't need any help currently from the VA for it. But if I should, there's no record for it. There's no supporting that. So I think that the things that you're mentioning for guys and gals that are suffering from these other afflictions that they know could be career limiting for them, I mean, it's going to show up as a big blank after their career with the Army is over. I don't know what the solution to that is, but it certainly presents as a problem to me.
Talk is the solution. Getting it out of your system is always the solution for anything, because once you start talking about it, you start relieving some of that stress level that you have. So there is a solution. So
Yeah. Well, the good news is that the Army has gotten better about trying to get people to get all that stuff documented before they get out of the Army. There's now,
Right.
you guys probably worked until your last day in the Army, and then they gave you a sheet of paper and kicked you out and said, thanks for what you did, right? Or in the Navy. Now it's about a 24-month
Pretty
process
close.
it's about a 24-month process to leave the Army. And frankly, it's not as good. It's not as well defined for enlisted folks than it is for officers, but they're working on that as well. But still, the stigma is the piece to overcome, because people still don't want to, they just still don't want to be, identified for whatever it is that they have while they're still active duty. So while there's some progress,
Right.
it's slow, but it's good, but it's happening.
So do you guys carry your DD-214 in your wallet?
No, I have a picture of it.
I have my retiree ID card with me. That does the trick.
True.
It's always with you if you have one of these nowadays.
Yeah.
So let me make a suggestion. Do you ever ask for veteran discounts? Okay, the most valuable
Not too
thing-
often, but
Okay, the most valuable thing you will ever do. So I'm in an AT&T store and I was buying 6 phones for my family. And at the end of it, I just happened to ask, by the way, do you give veteran discounts? My phone bill went from, what did it go? It went from $450 a month down to $250 a month just by me asking. So I carry my DD-214 in my wallet. And over Veterans Day, did you guys ask when you went out for dinner? Did you ask do you give veteran discounts?
I didn't go anywhere on Veterans Day myself, but yeah, I mean, there's a lot of places that specifically have Veterans Day discounts. But I think that's a great suggestion for those that did not get to retire. Absolutely.
yeah,
That's
a good point.
I asked on what was it, last Tuesday or Monday was Veterans Day. Everywhere I went for dinner or lunch or whatever, I asked if they gave veteran discounts. I don't think I paid for a single solitary meal. And I was in Scottsdale, Arizona for that, and I didn't pay for anything. So, we if you don't know better, you don't think to act on it. But if you don't get anything else out of this meeting, ask people if they give veteran discounts. You'd be amazed at how many people say yes, how many companies say yes. All right, gang, I think we've exhausted ourselves. We're going to end a whopping 11 minutes early. But thank you so much for attending. We're looking forward to it. We're gonna do one more meeting next week, and then we'll see how often we'll actually have the meeting, whether we need to do it every week or do it once a month or every other week. It's up to you guys. You guys create the systematic way of getting you to come to our meetings. Does that sound good?
Works for me.
Works for me too.
Thanks, gentlemen.
Thanks, guys.
You guys
All right,
are
guys.
great. Appreciate you. Thank
Have a
you.
good weekend.
God bless.
All right. Talk to you later.